Today I choose to follow you.
Good morning. It's Thursday, the 30th of June. I trust that you got a decent cup of coffee. You're not trying to get the day started with a cup of tea or something like that, but that you got a decent cup of coffee that you want to start the day with. And then if you have your Bibles, turn to James chapter 1, Jacobus hoofstuk 1. James chapter 1 verse 26 says a very interesting thing to me. If anyone thinks himself to be religious and yet does not bridle his tongue, but deceives his own heart, this man's religion is worthless. Now, so many of us talk up our lives. So many of us, when we ask them a question about who they are, what their values are, they give us this long story that they've planned and they've thought out beforehand. They don't necessarily live that story, but they tell the story and they know the story, and they've told the story so often to themselves that they've deceived their own hearts, and they've lied to themselves about what their values and what their standpoint and what their worldview, what their personality is. They've told the story so often that they cannot stop it, they cannot bridle, they cannot control their tongue. Their tongue just runs away with them, and they tell the story that they've convinced themselves to believe, and so they spin this yarn as to who they are and what their values are and how they live life. And if you take the time to actually look into that person's lifestyle, if you take the time to look at the fruit that's hanging in their life and the actions that flow from their deeds, it doesn't match up to their words. And their religion is empty, and because they cannot control their tongues, they just run away with the story, with the lie, with the met die rympie wat hulle al soveel keer al gesê het en hulle ken so goed dat hulle volg eintlik die rympie, nie hulle hart nie. En eintlik bedrieg hulle eie harte. That's the sadness of what this verse is saying. Verse 27 says, pure and undefiled religion in the sight of our God and Father is this: to visit orphans and widows in their distress and to keep oneself unstained by the world. Don't fall into the world's mold. Don't worry about what the world wants to say of you. Don't be a people pleaser. Don't just do things when other people can see it and then blow your trumpet and add to the story that you're telling yourself about what a good person you are. Go and see the widow and the orphan, those who have no means in their distress, have no means of repaying your favor. Other people are not there. They're alone. When you go and you help the widows and the orphans, there's not a crowd around to see what you're doing. You're doing it because it's pressed on your heart, and it flows out of a love and a faith and an active presence of Jesus Christ in your heart and in your life. That's, what does he say here? Pure and undefiled religion in the sight of our God and Father is what you do when it flows out of your heart, when it's not what your story tells you to do and not what the world expects or pushes or presses you to do, but it just comes out of a genuine love, a God's love in your heart for other people, the widows and the orphans in their distress, where you go make a difference. Dis ons ding. Waar jy iets vir iemand anders gaan doen sonder dat jy gesien word in jou goeie dade, en dan praat mense jou op nie. Gaan nie daaroor nie. Gaan oor 'n egte liefde en 'n omgee vir mense wat uit 'n goddelike hart vloei. En dis waar jy die verskil maak, en dis ware geloof. It's not empty religion that is deceptive to the heart and is just talked up. It's an active, life-changing, impacting faith, not a story that we can just bridle your tongue, stop talking the talk, and start walking the walk. Have a wonderful, wonderful Thursday, and enjoy that coffee. Don't suffer with tea anymore. Put the tea aside. Just stop telling yourself that tea is good for you. That's just not a story you want to believe. It's a deception. Just switch to coffee, get it over and done with, and start living life Have a wonderful, wonderful Thursday.
Today I choose to give my yes